Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Stuart Allen Swerdlow.
And Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow.
And this is the Expansions News Podcast for the very first week of April 2020. And in the beginning, I have a few stories to tell you about, but then after that, I'm going to go into some maybe controversial information concerning this so-called pandemic going on in the world. Plandemic. Exactly correct. And by the way, so that you know, up until 2 years ago, the definition of pandemic was that it would be an illness that killed more people than the annual flu. But 2 years ago, they changed that definition so that that's why they can call this coronavirus a pandemic, even though it is not a pandemic.
According to the old definition.
According to the real definitions
definition.
that they keep changing to suit their own needs and
plans.
blindside the public.
And plans.
Exactly correct. And actually, speaking of things that happened years ago, 5 years ago, the Italian state-owned media company RAI, you know RAI Italia, which Radio Televisione Italiana, exposed the efforts by the Chinese on the virus. And the video was broadcast in November 2015, so it was actually 4.5 years ago. And it showed how Chinese scientists were doing biological experiments on SARS, connected virus believed to be coronavirus, derived from bats and mice, and asking whether it was worth the risk in order to be able to modify the virus for compatibility with human organisms. Why would you want to modify a virus from bats so that humans can get it? What purpose could that possibly have?
I wouldn't want it.
Correct.
And interestingly, just before all this started, remember they showed that it was all over the news about that one Chinese woman eating the bat.
It was so disgusting.
Yeah, but
even under normal circumstances.
But obviously they're giving you symbols of
Yes.
things.
Chinese scientists created a pulmonary supervirus from bats and mice only for study reasons.
We've heard that before.
Only to study it. But there are many questionable aspects. First question, why? Why would you need to do that? Create something that doesn't exist so you can study it and then kill people. Brilliant.
Well, that way they can study people.
But as I have told you last week about what this coronavirus really is, what the Chinese did was used as a model to replicate via the AI and 5G transmissions that I told you about last week. Now, to add an extra level of understanding to this, how does the transmission work to create the virus within the body? It uses the exosomes from the human bodies. Exosomes are lipid-like material that is expelled from cells, originally thought to be waste product, but actually is used to communicate between cells. And these exosomes do contain DNA material from the person, and then the 5G and the AI signal attach to the exosome as a basis or foundation, and then replicate the viral symptoms from SARS, HIV, MERS, etc. And that's what happens in the body. It's based on the corruption or alteration of the exosomes from the human cells. And that's how the virus is. So you can't catch it. Again, you cannot catch it. You can't transmit it. Your body replicates this from the signals. And to go a step further, the Israel Institute for Biological Research, known as IIBR, has begun testing a COVID-19 vaccine prototype on rodents, as its biochemical defense laboratory told Reuters this week. In a statement, Netanyahu's office said that IIBR Director Shmuel Shapiro had informed him of significant progress in designing a vaccine prototype, and that the institute is now preparing a model for commencing an animal trial. And they said this animal would be on a rodent, but the source declined to identify the kind of rodent. Bats, perhaps?
Doesn't even make sense.
No, bats, because they take that as the model for replication. But the facility of the lab is very crowded and very busy and very dangerous, so it has to be slow and very cautious. The Israelis know the cause. The Israelis and the Chinese scientists were very closely together. Perhaps the vaccine blocks holographic reproduction of the exosome changes. That would make sense to me. And what I found very humorous, just a humorous story, is the Japanese Deputy Vice President Asaf Taro told reporters that the World Health Organization should change its name to the Chinese Health Organization. So far, 500,000 people have signed the petition to switch the name. And this Japanese politician, Asaf Taro, is actually pro-Taiwan, which is interesting since Japan used to control Taiwan before it was given to the Chinese after World War II. They blasted the World Health Organization for bowing to China and excluding Taiwan as a member state. Speaking to Japanese lawmakers, Asaf Taro, the deputy prime minister, said the WHO should change their name to the Chinese Health Organization. Taiwan was being driven to become a world leader in combating the coronavirus, and has also led to the postponement of the 2020 Olympics in Japan, which are now going to be in July 2021. So I wonder if that means that the next Olympics will be another 4 years or just 3 years?
They're going to still keep the name of 2020, even though it's going to be in 2021, unless they change that. The last I read, yes, they're going to still call it 2020 Olympics, even though it's 2021.
Really?
Yes.
That's like 20th Century Fox.
So my guess is if they leave it 2020, then they'll do the next one 2024.
That'll just fool people to think it's really a year earlier. Brilliant idea.
Time travel.
It just gets more bizarre and stupid. There's no reason to postpone the Olympics because there's no virus like that. The U.S. says it's sending warships to the Caribbean, supposedly to stop illegal drugs. You know how violent the Caribbean is, all those pirates. We must not let the drug cartels exploit the coronavirus pandemic to threaten American lives, said President Donald Trump. The move comes a week after the U.S. charged Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and other senior officials in the country with narco-terrorism. It accused them of flooding the U.S. with cocaine and using drugs as a weapon to undermine the health of Americans. And as I mentioned last week, there's a $15 million reward offered for the information leading to Maduro's arrest. Now, and with all this going on, the U.S. has blacklisted some Russian oil firms for helping Maduro. And besides that, apparently, Venezuela reveals that they've had secret talks with the U.S. That is secret, because nobody knew.
That's not a secret anymore. It's
No.
all over the news that they had secret talks.
If I know, you know, everybody knows. But the U.S. deployment comes 2 days after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo offered to lift crippling sanctions against Venezuela if Maduro and Mr. Guaido agreed to a power-sharing deal. That'll never happen. The charges against Maduro and 14 members of his inner circle were announced on the 26th of March, including narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, money laundering, and corruption. Sounds like lovely people. Mm-hmm. So basically, the government of Venezuela will be changed soon, like it was in Bolivia. Many underground bases are in Venezuela, and human trafficking from the Caribbean goes through Venezuela, down through South America to Antarctica, where it is then gone into the slave trade, which I discussed in our January class. October 14th, 2019, the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force reported 2,100 children were rescued by U.S. Marines from underground bases in California. And remember, that's the time of all the earthquakes and the power failures in California. The children were rescued during night raids conducted by U.S. Marines using night vision at 5 different locations in California, and the military had PG&E cut the power in advance. That's why you had the blackouts. It had nothing to do with the wind that they said was a problem. And I told you then, it's awfully strange that they would cut the power because it was windy outside. There were arrests, and the children were taken to various medical and psychiatric facilities. The children's ages were anywhere from 3 to 17. They were both boys and girls, mostly girls, but there were some boys, and their needs are being met, according to this report.
Back in October,
But ongoing. They're all being fixed up and made whole to get some nutrition in them. They were in incredibly bad shape. And they're trying to investigate to find their parents, which is going to be a big problem because no one knows who they are. It was all done under the cover of darkness, as I mentioned. All those underground fires were from the military, and they blew it up, the underground bases, like they have been doing in the past. A lot of the children are not from the United States. A lot of Spanish-speaking from Mexico and Guatemala and other parts, and from South America. They don't know who their parents are, and that is a big reason why Trump put up the wall, to protect everybody from this happening further. And it's been reported, and there are videos about it, that there were fires reported coming from manholes and sewer openings in the streets in Northern California and Southern California. Of course, everyone thought maybe there was magma coming up or an earthquake was coming, but it was these explosions in these underground bases and what they call DUMBs, deep underground military bases. There were quakes, fires, and grid shutdowns, all for this reason. Now, another interesting story that I found recently came from a former Hamas soldier. The Hamas, the terrorist organization in the Middle East, and he said, this former Hamas soldier, that the state of mind of many Arabs today is still deep in the same mindset of the 6th or 7th century. And that is correct. He said that all of humanity is under attack by Muslim belief system. He says that we have to fight an ideological battle, just as he did with his own life. He said the most controversial issue is that he fights against the words that Islam is a religion of peace. He says it is not. He claims that the battle is indeed against the exact concept. The issue is indeed the Islamic religion's battle against the norms of the Western world. He left Islam and switched to Christianity, and now fights against BDS movement, which is the boycott against Israel. He fights against that, and he says the Palestinians are a bunch of hypocrites. So Islam as a religion will change or end, just like Catholicism, all fake-based. Now, back to where you used to come from. Idaho and states throughout the Northwest were hit by a 6.5 magnitude earthquake this past week. The epicenter was 45 miles west of Chalice. Do you know that place? Yes. And 73 miles north of Meridian. You know Meridian?
I do.
Mm-hmm. People in 6 different states reportedly felt the 6.5 magnitude earthquake. I heard even as far north as Calgary.
I heard that too.
Mm-hmm. This earthquake was the second strongest earthquake in the world for the last 30 days, and there have been 45 aftershocks that have been registered so far by the USGS. These are not natural earthquakes. They have the destruction of the DUMBs that I mentioned earlier. The same thing happened in Texas, Alaska, Nevada, California, and Utah, and more are coming globally. In fact, just I believe, was it last night or this morning, a 4.6 in Southern California.
Last night, I think.
That was near in the Mojave, right over huge reptilian nests. So President Trump is getting rid of all the riffraff underneath the ground. And speaking of things underneath the ground, the tallest waterfall in Ecuador ran dry after a mysterious sinkhole opened up under the river that feeds it. The San Rafael Waterfall in Ecuador is the tallest in the country and is now dry. The sinkhole opened underneath the river that led to the waterfall, and the local officials are researching the cause of the sinkhole. Now, as you know, when I was in Ecuador, we had 3 earthquakes. So that was very strange because I never had them in Ecuador before when I was there. And the sinkhole must reach really deep to the magma levels. Otherwise, if it had a bottom, the water would just fill up and overflow and come back out again.
Right.
So the fact that it's dried up means it's gone way down to the...
Underground somewhere.
Yes, maybe to the magma that's evaporating the water as it falls down. Which means if that's the case, then I would suspect that Ecuador will have a volcanic eruption or a major, bigger earthquake very soon. Or the hole is opened up all the way to the inner earth. Maybe they're flooding the inner earth.
Might be.
Fill it with water. Now, speaking of things that are underground, and this is very important, those of you who are in my January class or who are reading my new books in history.
Which ones? These ones? Is it
yeah.
one in particular, or
Well,
just
all of them
all of them
have.
are
Yeah.
All right.
And then, so in 2006, a man named Bertie Curry, I like that name, Bertie Curry, and you can only get that name in Ireland.
I wouldn't want that name, except if I was in Ireland.
Bertie Curry. He was clearing land to make a driveway for a bar on Rathlin Island off of Antrim when he noticed a large flat stone buried beneath the surface. So when he moved it, there was a large gap underneath the stone, and he investigated it further. And it turned out to be a hugely significant ancient burial site as well that had DNA analysis done on it, and completely is changing the perception that Irish people are descended from the Celts. Because according to the bones that they discovered, it could rewrite Irish history and ancestry, which will match what I wrote in my books and in my class. They found 3 skeletons under the pub. Of course, there could have been people that, their wives just got rid of them because they were drunk. But they are the ancestors of modern Irish people and predate the Celts' arrival on the Irish shores by 1,000 years. Essentially, Irish DNA existed in Ireland before the Celts ever set foot on the island. Instead, Irish ancestors may have come to Ireland from the Bible lands in the Middle East. Gee, where have we heard that from? Wow. And this is most likely from the tribe of Dan. Remember, people, I'm not going to go through the whole history here, but 10 of the tribes so-called vanished. They didn't vanish, they went elsewhere. The so-called lost tribes of Israel. One of the tribes was the tribe of Dan. The tribe of Dan was known for their maritime abilities. And in fact...
This one, maybe?
I don't think I put all of that in there, no.
Right.
So anyway, they may have arrived in Ireland from the South Mediterranean, and they were most likely from the tribe of Dan. And the bones also resemble the contemporary Irish, Scottish, and Welsh people who are also from the lost tribes of Israel. So all you people out there in Western Europe who think you're Celtic, you're not. You're Jewish. And the descendant of Solomon's navy around 900 BC and the tribe of Dan went throughout Mediterranean and then up to Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England. And that is when the Irish also recorded a group of people called the Danann who invaded Ireland. Hello, it was the tribe of Dan, the Hebrews. Most Europeans are descended from the Israelites. And in fact, the Scottish Declaration of Independence from hundreds of years ago states that they came from Scythia, and Parthia, Scythia, Carthage, and even Iberia are colonies of King Solomon's navy. They were Hebrews. Now, for some information that I want to tell you, which is very controversial, and I am sure that for some of it I will get flack.
You can always get flack.
Yes, but this is.
So,
There's a video that was sent to me from the UK, actually by a police officer, that showed 2 men coming to an apartment building in hazmat suits for a man who they said was dead, and that they had the orders 2 hours before to claim the body. And the video, it's a private video, it's not online because it's someone's personal cell phone video that was sent to other people. This British woman is screaming at them saying, the man's not dead, she just spoke to him 5 to 10 minutes ago, he was drunk, and she sent them away with the police. So how could they have an order to pick up his body from 2 hours ago? People, this is just the proof of the lies that are being committed. Death certificates. I received personal information the other day from people who were in the health industry in New York City that said New York death certificates of suicides, car accidents, old age, heart attacks, and strokes are being revised to reflect coronavirus when the person never had it. That's why the amounts are so high. It's fake. Now, the other thing is, Chris Cuomo from CNN is faking his virus. You know, he's been online saying, oh, he's got the coronavirus, he's working from the basement of his home. Well, he don't look too sick to me. He's sitting up all
sick,
dressed and...
Who's doing the recording?
Yeah, well, it's probably on his camera.
that's always sick.
They're all working from home because they're probably under arrest, people. Home arrest.
They also called it the Beast, which I found
Yeah,
interesting.
the beast is in the mirror when he looks in it. Okay, and then he had this Don Lemon drop on CNN, the black gay guy who's crying. Oh, Chris he is the biggest phony baloney on the face of the earth. And if you notice, there's been several CNN reporters that they hear and they just start crying.
Yes.
Why are they doing it? Ratings, people. CNN is losing it. People are finding out that it's the communist news network, complete fake news, so they need to build their ratings. So how about some heart-tugging stories about people that would bring people back to CNN? Not going to work. Okay? It's all fake, and they're just using it to get sympathy viewers. Don't fall for it. We also know that ventilators that have been distributed by the governor, by the president and the government to the Northeast, which were being stored in warehouses in New Jersey, were not being distributed to the hospitals in New York. And then they're saying the government's not giving to them. The same thing happened in Puerto Rico. The supplies went, they got stuck in a warehouse, nobody distributed
Well,
them.
not only that, do you have that where that they have supposedly they wanted to get them from the U.S., but instead Cuomo went to China, and now they can't get them.
Well,
So-
because probably he's getting a commission from China.
Yes, that's why.
Because he's buying it. There's fake hospital images, fake pictures, staged videos from hospitals.
And now the mainstream news are apologizing.
They're admitting that they're
Fox
copying.
did, and I think CNN as well. Both of
Because
them.
they use BS stories. I'm telling you,
Yes.
people don't fall for this garbage that you're being thrown every second of the day. Many of the deaths, now here's the part that's going to get me in trouble, I think. These deaths are demon related. They are people who have been possessed, and the demons are fleeing the body, and the body dies, and then they're calling it coronavirus. This is a war of good and evil that's going on. Yes, it's spiritual. Yes, it is religious. Yes, it is the real end times happening in front of your face. That's what's going on, people. Now, in order to block the viral symptoms that the 5G and the AI signals are creating from your exosomes, you need high doses of C.
Now, high doses, remember, we told you last time that they're giving them 1,500 4 times a day in the hospital, 1,500 milligrams. That's not enough.
No, a minimum 10,000 units a day. But if you can get an IV, I had an IV in Ecuador before I left, 25,000 milligrams, something like that, but you can get up to 60. It will kill all of the pathogens in your body.
But right now you might not be able to get that. So if you can get the powder, remember it can give you diarrhea, but you're supposed to be home anyway. So start out a little smaller and build your dose up. But like I said, a person my size, I take about 5,000 milligrams a day on a regular basis. And you said you probably about that too, maybe? A little bit more,
I used
7
to
or
take
8.
more, 7 or 8, sometimes 10.
I've taken up to 10, but I don't think I need that. So anyway, vitamin C is very, very cheap and you can get that easily.
And also D, minimum 5,000 IUs per day. Quinine, we know, kills
The tonic
destroys
water.
It's in tonic water. Methylene blue.
Okay, which we have. And somebody wrote to us to say, remember to tell people that not all methylene blue is methylene
Do
blue.
not get the conventional commercial kind.
Because ours is, we know our source.
This is organic.
And this is very good. And somebody wrote to me saying that theirs had lead and arsenic and all kinds of things in
conventional crap
it.
stuff.
So
Don't use that.
we have really good, and people want to know how long it will last. A bottle of the
Mine
plus,
lasts a couple of months, few
at
months.
least. It depends on how much you take. But if you have a plus, 1 drop of the plus equals 4 drops of the regular.
Of MB plus.
But if you're very, very
No.
sick or you have a weak immune system, you need to start with the lower quality.
I'm taking 9 drops a day. I take 6 in the morning, 3 in the evening. And
Of
it
the plus.
actually helps me sleep.
I take about 12
Yeah.
drops a
Mhm.
day.
And of course, sea salt, very, very important.
And then we also have this skin block, which you can spray on yourself. So.
And all of this will end very suddenly. One day you'll wake up and it will all be over. Trillions of dollars will be pumped back into the economy. No, the United States and the world are not going to be destroyed. It will all come back very, very quickly. Dark to light.
And even Trump said it will come back very quickly. He said it'll be
I'm
over
telling
very
you people,
quickly.
don't listen to the media.
Listen to us. But do your own research and make up your own minds. My turn?
Go.
Okay, so I have some interesting things that are going to kind of dovetail with what you've been talking about, and one is about underground. Because I'm sure you read that the U.S. Northern Command has dispersed essential command and control teams to multiple, they call it hardened locations, including Cheyenne Mountain Bunker Complex in Colorado. And they're keeping them in isolation because they said they want the military to be safe and not have to think about the pandemic and watch what's going on in the homeland, which is us at this point. However, U.S. Air Force General Terrence O'Shaughnessy not only heads the North Command, but also serves as the commanding officer of U.S. Canadian North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, as you already know. So Cheyenne Mountain, if in case you don't know, it's a complete complex buried under 2,000 feet of solid granite, and its individual facilities are contained within 5 acres of massive excavated tunnels tucked behind blast doors that weigh 25 tons. Now that's what they're telling you. So if that's what they're telling you, you have to know it has to be much larger than that, in my opinion. O'Shaughnessy also said another portion of what they're calling watch teams has formed in a third team in an alternate location as well. Now, you want to be aware that the Department of Defense does maintain an array of so-called continuity sites across the country, specifically designed to make sure that U.S. military personnel can carry out essential functions during any major contingency scenario, such as a pandemic that we're going through
For the
now.
last 2 years, military has been training for underground battles.
I have that in here.
Okay.
So you can comment when I get that far. So they have another site. One is called the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, also known simply as Site R, which is a huge underground city built under the Appalachian Mountains near Blue Ridge Summit, Pennsylvania. It's situated near the presidential retreat at Camp David. Raven Rock began operations, what they're telling you, in the 50s and has been described as an underground pentagon. And it serves as the primary backup location for senior Department of Defense personnel to operate from when necessary. Now I have another one called Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center, which is another hardened complex situated in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley. And this represents the core trio of known U.S. continuity of government sites. So this is just what's known. So think of what is not known. Now, speaking of what's going on underground, in August of 2019, DARPA, the Defense of the United States, the Defense Department, asked on Twitter, of all places, if they knew of any urban underground tunnels able to host research and experimentation. And this was what DARPA put out. Attention city dwellers. We're interested in identifying university-owned or commercially managed underground urban tunnels and facilities able to host research and experimentation. The ideal space would be a human-made underground environment spanning several city blocks with complex layout and multiple stories, including atriums, tunnels, and stairwells. Spaces that are currently closed off from pedestrians or can be temporarily used for testing our interest. The agency is looking for a place to host a stage of its Subterranean Challenge, a competition that enlists labs to develop new technologies to rapidly map, navigate, search, and exploit complex underground environments such as man-made tunnels and natural caves. This was put out by DARPA on Twitter, August of 2019. Okay, and then going back just a little bit beyond that, 2018, I found this article that the Army is spending $500 million to train soldiers to fight underground. The U.S. Army leaders say that the next war will be fought in mega cities, but the service has embarked on an ambitious effort to prepare most of its combat brigades to fight not inside the cities, but underneath them.
And that's what they're doing, and that's why all those earthquakes occurring where they're blowing them up.
And then in 2017, the Army funneled $572 million into training and equipping 26 of its 31 active combat brigades to fight in large-scale subterranean facilities that exist between dense urban areas around the world. So now we have all kinds of things going on under the ground, but they've obviously been preparing for a while. So according to the Army, they say that the new type of warfare, this was written in 2018, infantry units will need to know how to effectively navigate, communicate, breach heavy obstacles, and attack enemy forces in underground mazes ranging from confined corridors to tunnels as wide as residential streets. Soldiers will need new equipment and training to operate in conditions such as complete darkness, bad air, lack of cover from enemy fire in areas that challenge standard Army communications equipment. An assessment estimates that there are about, listen to this, 10,000 large-scale underground military facilities around the world that are intended to serve as subterranean cities.
But also as trafficking centers.
Yes. This is from an Army source who is not cleared to talk to the press, but this is what we have. The Army's Asymmetric Warfare Group says that large numbers of conventional forces must be trained and equipped to fight underground. See, we're being told about the Space Force, and this is what's been going on if you do your research. According to this article, toxic air, a drop in oxygen, or an absence of oxygen, or cave-ins, or hazardous gases, or other challenges that soldiers will likely face operating deep underground. Soldiers can find themselves exposed to smoke, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, methane, natural gas underground. And the lights can go out. The soldiers will be in total darkness. They have to have special goggles so that they can see. They also need special hand-carried ballistic shields, at least 2 per squad, since tunnels provide little or no cover from enemy fire, and weapon suppressors to cut down on the noises because it amplifies in underground spaces. So this to me is just amazing that all this was going on, and now we're hearing the results of some of the other things that you're telling us about here today. And speaking of fear-mongering, I have spoken extensively about deaths of despair, and so has President Trump. So Los Angeles Suicide Hotline during the month of March received 75 times the previous month of calls over fears of getting coronavirus and related anxiety about eviction, inability to pay bills, and losing loved ones. In fact, 1 in 5 expressed a desire to kill themselves. This is suicide.
And then when they do, they'll say that it was coronavirus.
Yes, well, they will. They will, absolutely. Now, in Tennessee, Knox County, Tennessee, listen to this. More people died from suicide than coronavirus in Tennessee this past week. In fact, the Tennessee mayor Glenn Jacobs of Knoxville said the number completely shocks me and makes me wonder if what we're doing is really the best approach.
Go on.
Okay? He says we have to determine how we can respond to COVID-19 in a way that keeps our economy intact, keeps people employed, and empowers them with a feeling of hope and optimism, not desperation and despair. And in Portland, Oregon, the police chief there said that suicide threats or attempts are up 41% from this time last year and have jumped 23% since 10 days before declared state of emergency.
Yeah, so coronavirus from January 1st to the end of March had a global death rate of approximately 50,000. The flu, 113,000. Malaria, 228,000. Suicide, almost 250,000. Traffic fatalities, over 300,000, and on. Smoking, over 1 million. Cancer, 2 million. Hunger, 2.5 million. Abortion, 10 million. So coronavirus is this much compared to the global death rate of all these other things. I just wanted you to see that.
Yeah. Now also, jpost.com, they believe that the coronavirus is the start of the Messianic era. So keep your eyes on that source. And then the other thing I want to tell you is, remember, we've been talking to you about that it's possible, dark to light, that things might go dark for a while. So in Britain, they're already telling people to prepare for blackouts as the coronavirus lockdown goes on, because they're saying they're not going to have the infrastructure.
So that
to
means that
maintain
they're going to turn off the lights like they did in California, so they can go underground and do what they need to.
And it was funny because when I was doing this, I know I've seen it somewhere else and I thought I had the source, but then I forgot and I didn't go back and look. But you might want to look to see, because if they're telling you this, and this is what they're saying in Britain, but keep keep this in mind. They said to keep torches, which we call flashlights, torches, and warm clothes handy. And it said that to make sure you have enough medicine, make sure you have enough food and water. Probably, my guess is maybe, probably not more than 2 or 3 days, but you never know. And then make sure you have a way to call for help. They said to be sure to be able to stay warm, hat, gloves, and a blanket. Keep your curtains and doors closed to any unused rooms. That will help conserve heat, or hopefully at this point, I'm sure most people are going to need heat, who knows. Vulnerable customers, including those who are elderly, have a disability or medical condition, have children under the age of 5, you need a power bank fully charged in case your mobile phone battery dies, or a corded telephone. I know most people don't these days. Also, remember, don't go in and out of your refrigerator or your freezer any more than you have to.
Or you could just get a generator.
Well, not everybody can. And if they're in an apartment building or something, if they don't have the money, not everybody can do that. And anyway, but it says that your food should keep for quite a while. So just watch and pay attention to these things, because they are telling you already to prepare. My feeling is if they do this, maybe, go back and forth and back and forth. It's just not going to happen all of a sudden. So, because otherwise people would panic. And remember, it's a pandemic. They've prepared for whatever reason. And also, remember last week I reported on Bob Dylan's new song, Murder Most Foul, that had to do with JFK.
Yeah, it just goes on and on and on.
And it's been going on all over the news. And then, very weird, Kennedy's grandchildren were singing a song called Timber all over. And then, and then before I tell the latest, which of course you probably already know, most of you, but then there's been all kinds of rumors. First of all, when JFK was murdered, that he was alive. That was the first one. Then now his son, JFK Jr., now they're claiming that maybe he's alive and he's part of Q, and they're showing the necktie with the Q on it. I think other things with Q on it.
I don't know if that's true or not.
We don't know. But that's what they're showing. Now JFK's niece and her son have disappeared.
Which
in a
doesn't
very
make
strange
sense.
story.
Why would they go canoeing in rough water?
Right.
And that, without the proper equipment.
They claim that there was a ball, and so they got in this
Doesn't
kayak
make
to go
any
look
sense. That's a cover story.
for something
That's not a
else.
true
Who
story.
knows if they even got in the kayak? But something's going on. So the Kennedys are in the news. Keep your eyes on that story. And I've been telling you about the Pope. Now, with all the coronavirus going on, he's making all kinds of changes. So now the Pope is saying that Catholics may now confess directly to God without a priest present due to the coronavirus restrictions. And he issued a dispensation temporarily dispensing with the need for meeting with a priest to confess your sins.
You just keep selling those indulgences.
Yes. Now this is what's interesting. He gave the prayer for Catholics. He said, you can talk to God because God's your Father, and you can tell him the truth. And he promised him, later I will confess, but forgive me now. What does it mean, later I will confess?
You're confessing to God. What else you got to do?
I know, it doesn't make sense. And then,
But besides, God already knows what you did.
yeah, and then immediately you will return to the grace of God. And then this article goes on to say, of course, that most of you know the founders of the Protestant Reformation accused the Roman Catholic Church of using the confessional as a means to control the masses. This was back in the Protestant Reformation.
Yeah, that's true.
The Reformers contended that it is unnecessary to confess sin through a human intermediary in order to receive forgiveness from or have access to God. Like, duh. So anyway, what I want to tell you is all of this, which is these things that are going around in the news, is to stop listening to the public icons, stop listening to these people they call influencers now. I think that's a crazy term.
Where did that come from?
Be your own influencer instead of living vicariously through others. So stop watching other people. You don't need big butts, and you don't need injections in your body, and you don't need fat lips. And so all these people that are just trying to sell products, that's why they're trying to do this, so that they could sell you a product or turn you into somebody you're not supposed to do. Don't pay attention to them. Turn them off. Quit following these people and follow yourself.
I can't get a big butt. No matter what I do, won't get
What
bigger.
if I could hit you with a bat and it made it
Well, you could,
swim
yeah.
up?
Well, that's a nice idea.
Could
I
happen.
would kind of do that every day anyway.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah. So that's kind of my rant, but I have a couple of other things which I think are still interesting to tell you.
You know, I had a rant all right.
Because I got an interesting story. So this one I find I can't read my notes. You have
Why
to
not?
listen.
Go on.
So
please.
listen. I can't if that you're trying to read my notes. The Quebec government signed a $23 million deal with a French company called the Flying Whales. Do you know what it's about?
Whales that fly?
Yes, airships. So they're going to develop airships again. They're trying to bring those back, believe it or not.
Oh, those blimps.
Yeah, but they call it an airship. And they're claiming that now, to me, if they're going to start using them in 2022, and this is like halfway practically through 2020, that they're probably already in production.
What
And they're
could
just now telling you
what could
that.
possibly go wrong with the blimp?
Yeah. So they're
Hindenburg.
right. A lot of things can go wrong with the blimp. In fact, I didn't put it in my news because I knew the news was going to be long enough. But if you read this article, it talks about all the times they have tried to revive the blimps and they wind up having problems.
There's a
and
reason
crashing.
why they didn't.
That's right. And so they even funded several projects and they tanked them because they had problems. Now, they're claiming that these flying whales, airships, can carry up to 60 metric tons of cargo and travels of speeds up to 62 miles per hour, which is not very fast.
No.
However, they said unlike commercial planes, they do not require large airstrips or airports. They can ascend and descend vertically, hover in place on a range of surfaces, including ice sheets, deserts, beaches, forest clearings, and even on water.
What happens when it's windy out?
Now they're claiming that these are to deliver supplies to the remote northern territories. Well, the remote northern territories are wide open spaces up in Canada. So they're going to have another use for these. But what interests me amongst all of this is they said, very interesting, that they do not operate on petroleum-based products, but they operate on helium. Now, helium,
That's a lot of hot air.
which you may not know, but I happen to know from our
Because
physicist's son.
I thought it's because you inhale it all the time.
Yeah, because natural stores of helium gas are running low in the U.S., Qatar, and other regions where it's harvested.
They harvest in Qatar?
Apparently. So that what they're saying is, however, the shortages might be offset by natural gas production, which creates helium as a waste product and could potentially be harvested for a burgeoning airship market. So again, very interesting because they're going to make something with a fuel that they claim there's not enough of to operate their ships.
Why
right?
don't they just harvest all the cow flatulence that they said is polluting the earth?
That's a good idea. When they go up, maybe they'll just catch it. So that I found interesting. And this one you might have read about, which is the evidence of ancient rainforests found in Antarctica, which is again
right.
where they heard that, which is a surprisingly new twist, according to researchers.
No, it isn't. It's old news.
To us it is old news, but to the researchers, they found a slice of the seafloor, they took a slice of the seafloor in 2017, and they said that it revealed pristine samples of forest soil, pollen, spores, and even root systems, so well preserved that they could identify cell structures. Now, do you believe that?
Yes, I believe everything on the news.
Good for you. During the initial shipboard assessments, the unusual coloration of the sediment layer quickly caught our attention because it clearly differed from the layers above that. We found a layer originally formed on land, not in the ocean. The preservation of this 90 million year old forest is exceptional. Even more surprising is the world that it reveals. Even during months of darkness, swampy, temperate rainforests were able to grow close to the South Pole, revealing an even warmer climate than we had expected.
Also, the inner Earth is right there.
That's right. The average daytime temperature was 53 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's very warm.
Yep, incredibly warm for a location near the South Pole, because generally the temperatures are minus 76 to 14 Fahrenheit.
It doesn't even get that warm here sometimes.
I know, and that's what it said. It's only 2 degrees warmer than Germany usually in March. River and swamp temperatures were likely around 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and they estimate that the rainfall reached 97 inches per year, about the same as Wales. So I thought that was extremely...
Flying whales or whales in Britain?
Maybe both. Maybe the flying whales have flatulence. And then my last story
Oh, thank God.
is about face recognition technology.
I don't have that. I don't recognize anybody's face.
Because what's interesting to me is this is a Microsoft-backed bill.
Mm-hmm.
Duh. In fact, I was thinking, how could that even happen? Because isn't you're not supposed to be able to buy legislation. You're not supposed to be able to buy stuff, but apparently they are. And that's my interpretation. Washington State okays facial recognition law seen as a national model, and they're calling it a Microsoft-backed bill that sets limits but doesn't ban the technology.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently Washington State Governor Jay Inslee signed the bill last week, establishing specific rules, and they keep saying backed by Microsoft. Every time I turn around, backed by
Well, that's
Microsoft.
your homeland.
I know. Apparently, it's governing facial recognition software, and now the new president of Microsoft's name is Bill Smith. That's kind of a generic name, I think.
Mm-hmm. But you have to have the name Bill in order to run that company.
I guess, and to pass a bill. This legislation represents a significant breakthrough. The first time a state or nation has passed a new law devoted exclusively to putting guardrails in place for the use of facial recognition technology. The new law aims to institute transparency and accountability for facial recognition, as well as mandates to safeguard basic civil liberties. Municipal and state authorities can use facial recognition for missing persons, Amber Alerts, Silver Alerts. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's when old people are gone?
Actually, I think it is that.
Maybe so. Silver Alerts.
I've heard of that before.
haven't.
We had one once, and I
Didn't
forgot
we?
what it was.
I gotta look that one up.
No, I think it's an adult. When an adult is
That's what I mean, like an old person.
Not an old person, an adult.
Just an adult. Okay, well, I gotta look it up. And for public safety. The issue has since been debated worldwide, with some countries outright banning the technologies, but Washington is the first state to pass legislation, thanks to Microsoft, to allow facial recognition but with constraints. So, very interesting. So, the world is interesting, and like we tell you, please don't live in fear. Read Heights of Health and Alternative Medical Apocrypha. Okay, and we have a lot of people who are ordering our Methylene Blue Plus
You
products.
can't even keep it.
But I will tell you, you've got to do your mental work, because all of this is great to boost your mind patterns, vitamin C, the vitamin D, all the things we're telling you about. But work on your mind pattern, because you need to have a healthy mind. Okay? So mind and body, healing archetypes and symbols is great for healing. Hyperspace Plus is great for healing. I will tell you that if you're new to our work, Decoding Your Life, which is Universal Law, and Hyperspace Helper are these two books alone are really, you're isolated at home anyway, work on your mind with these couple of books. And then all the rest are fascinating information, because as I've told you before, we have decades of experience and work between us. So we have a lot for you to choose from, but those are good places for you to start.
Yeah. April 8th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, I will be moderating an interview with the next Prime Minister of the Bahamas. It's going to be very fascinating because of what his plans are
And
for the
watch
Bahamas.
Facebook page and our website for the details of how to sign up. It's a free thing that you can listen to as it's happening live, right? Right?
Yeah,
It's not the
yes.
recorded thing. It's
It's
real.
live. It
Yeah,
should be
it's
live, I think. I think so.
It'll be
If we're all alive, it
Yeah.
will be alive.
okay. So we've got that happening. Of course, your turkey trips were postponed
Till
until
September. Till September.
So as soon as we get that ironed
hopefully
out,
not. You know.
but which we won't until the world
Listen,
settles
people,
down.
it's not going to last that long. It's going to end abruptly. Abruptly one day, you'll go wake up and it's going to be, birds will be flying and butterflies will be on your
And you'll
nose.
be singing.
And the sun will be shining, no more darkness, and everything will be wonderful.
Yeah, that's right. So, but remember, my Italy trip and my Iceland trip are also still on. So, of course, I'm not really expecting anybody
in
to
June.
sign up under the circumstances. However, if you're interested, please contact us and let us know. So when things are back to normal, you can get your plane tickets and get ready to go. So
Yeah.
that's in June, Italy and Iceland, and that's about it for now.
And that's it. And again, I want to emphasize that the deaths are being artificially inflated. They're fake numbers.
And the webinars. We have one session left in May. The April
Yeah.
one's already started, and the webinars will be done for this season.
Yeah, and
What else?
so many other things, but it'll be on the next podcast because just for time's sake, I don't want to get into all of this, but hopefully all of this mid-month, you should see a tremendous change in what's going on out
And
there.
remember, get your membership, expansions.com, and please, 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 each of us have 5,000 friends on Facebook. So if everybody sends us videos and links and
Yeah.
questions,
And
that would
te-
keep
and
us,
texts
we would
and-
never even sleep like for the next 50 years. So that's why we have Q&A on our membership
They
side.
just cannot possibly answer everybody.
No, so we don't. So we're not trying to be rude. We're just trying to help funnel down our time, the best use of our time. So if your question is so important to you that you really want an answer, then get a membership on our site, expansions.com, so that everybody can benefit from your question and our answer instead of just you. So please don't be selfish. Expansions.com, get a membership. Like, comment, subscribe, and share to YouTube. We appreciate it. It's a way of getting around their algorithms, which are changing, thank
They're
God.
falling apart.
So, but we need to have everybody out there helping us move out the hyperspace oversoul word, and also no fear. Let's not live in fear.
There's nothing to fear.
So
Nothing.
take care of yourselves, take care of your mind, take care of your body, and everything is good. All is well in the world.
Bye for now.
Bye.